The information presented on this program is not intended to take the place of your personal physician's advice and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Discuss this information with your own physician or healthcare provider to determine what is right for you. Welcome to Sanitas at sanitasradio.com, because your health and longevity should not be classified information. And now, here's your host, Mel Fabregas.
Greetings, I'm your host, Mel Fabregas. Welcome to Sanitas, where we declassify the secrets to your health. Shall we? Dr. Dorothy M. Neddermeyer, PhD, certified hypnosis and certified timeline practitioner with 30-plus years of experience, facilitates emotional, physical, and spiritual transformation, EPST, a highly effective protocol to transform the root cause of all issues and symptoms. EPST is direct, focused, and combines creating health while transforming the past. It is precise, powerful, virtually effortless, and accurate method to change the landscape of your inner and outer mind, body, and spirit. EPSD allows you to access your past, present, and future, as well as your subconscious to clear negative energy on all levels, beliefs, thoughts, and feelings, mind, body, and spirit. She is the author of 2 books and co-author of 2 others, and 2,500 plus articles in print and on the internet. And to learn more about Dr. Dorothy Neddermeyer, visit her website at drdorothy.info, not .com, .info. And I'm honored to have Dr. Neddermeyer here with me today. Hello, Dr. Dorothy, and welcome to Sanitas. How are you?
Yes, I am wonderful, and thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And recently, as I was telling our listeners in other shows, I conversed with my friend Sonia Barrett, and she gave me a list of people who are all appearing in her wonderful documentary, The Business of Disease, and you're one of them. And what caught my eye is that you discuss the emotion-disease connection, but I like to go in chronological order here first. Mm-hmm. What is EPSD, emotional, physical, and spiritual transformation?
Well, that's a protocol that I have developed to address all issues that people face. Every symptom that you have, whether it's an emotional symptom, physical symptom, or you have malaise in terms of I just don't feel right. Can't put my finger on it, don't know what it is, and oftentimes it is the spiritual disconnection that is highly rampant in the Western world. We don't connect ourselves with our spiritual self. We connect ourselves with religion. And we go and we keep our hands in our lap in the church. We go there once a week and figure that should be enough. Well, that's not a spiritual connection. That's an intellectual process. And that's sorely lacking, because spiritual connection is the energy of the universe, connecting with the energy of the universe, and we connect through wind, fire, and earth. Earth, wind, and fire. Those are the elements, and water. Well, those are the elements that we need to connect with in the process of being connected to our spiritual energy. And so in the Western world, that's why we rank the worst in the world as far as healthcare is concerned. We rank 37th.
Wow.
That's astonishing that we the World Health Organization ranks the United States as 37th in healthcare efficiency and effectiveness.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because we look to have someone fix it for us. We look to have pills, potions, body parts cut out. And if those 3 things don't work, then we use radiation and chemotherapy.
You know, I always say that technology is becoming more and more affordable. However, the more we connect technologically, I think the more we disconnect from life. Is this a true statement?
Absolutely, without question. If you if you connect with the universe, the universal energy, you are reconnecting to who you truly are as spiritual beings. And energy is all there is. Energy and matter is all there is, and all energy and all matter is interconnected. And it's on the understanding that everything in the universe is in sync with each other at the microscopic level. We are just a whirling mass of electrons and energy atoms spinning around. And so when we become disconnected from our source, which is the universal energy, the earth, the wind, the fire, and the water, the elements, we're disconnected from that energy that we need to be using to propel ourselves.
So you take the quote-unquote history of for me to understand this, you take the history of a symptom, and through hypnosis, you find the core emotional issue, and you say that the symptom is a message that body parts need help. An example, better nutrition, emotional healing, and or spiritual transformation. Please explain more.
Correct. Well, you look at the symptom, and you could even start with just a simple abdominal pain if you want, if that's, do we have abdominal pain? Yes, we call them abdominal cramps. And surprisingly enough, abdominal cramps are fear that's stopping the process of food digestion, for example, or and in addition to could be poor nutrition. Now, when I say poor nutrition, I'm not talking about Bangladesh, and I'm not talking about the ghettos. I'm talking about the average American person walking around has poor nutrition. We eat fast food, we eat processed food, we eat junk food, we eat a lot of sweets, and that's poor nutrition. So even though you may be spending a lot of money on food, you're spending money on poor nutrition in the meantime. So abdominal cramps has two levels, and that would be, of course, the emotional piece as well as the nutritional piece. So when I talk to that person who has the abdominal cramps, I would be evaluating what's your nutrition and what's your fear level and what's the fear about. And sometimes they don't even know. They don't know they have fear, and that's where hypnosis comes in, and I can just simply ask the subconscious mind, what's the fear about, and the answer pops out.
I'm so glad we're talking about the subconscious mind, because many people don't know how to tap into that, and I want to discuss this. But I'm glad you mentioned how we in the Western world, when we think of starvation, we think of these horrendous pictures from, Southeast Asia, Africa, and we think that those are the only ones who are starving. But you can see an obese person who's literally starving, because I think since the 1930s, at least in the United States, our soil has been losing nutrients. Can we say that many diseases are due to lack of nutrients?
Oh, absolutely. And not only that, we use pesticides, and we use artificial fertilizer, and we use all kinds of bug sprays, and so we're eating a lot of toxic stuff along with our food that is ravishing our bodies, even though we don't know it, because it's being ravished inch by inch rather than just in one fell swoop. And no, people don't do detoxes. You ask the average person, they don't do a detoxing metals, for example, and detoxing from pesticides and that sort of thing. And eating organic, of course, is the answer to that issue, but people think that it's too expensive.
Well, one 11-year-old child said this best in a TED Talk, I believe it was last year. He was discussing organic and saying, I understand it's more expensive, but would you rather pay a little bit more now rather than paying a lot more later in life, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I heard that. I saw that YouTube video, and it was excellent. It was brilliant. and he delivered it in such a powerful and empowered way. It was just astonishing. I was so proud of him. Don't know him, but he really delivered a powerful message.
Indeed, I highly recommend anybody to watch that.
Yes. Do you have the URL for it?
I will include it with this presentation, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be good, because he really delivered a very poignant message at 12 years old. He nailed it.
Now, you mentioned stomach cramps. A lot of people suffer from ulcers. And the people that I know who suffer from ulcers, I see a correlation between that and some emotional problems or stress. And what do they take? The most popular thing that people take when they feel that, Tums, which basically, what is it? Antacid. What do you tell people who have ulcers and stomach cramps when they feel it?
Well, again, we start looking at the nutrition first. And the emotional piece, what are they telling themselves? Our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions are all forms of energy. And when we think, feel, say, and do, in every moment comes back to create our reality. So what are you telling yourself about yourself? We are telling ourselves we're not good enough. Again, ulcers are fear-based. A strong belief in not feeling good about ourselves. And the other question is what is eating away at you? There's something going on that's in your life that's been eating away at you, and that could be anything. It could be resentment towards someone, or resentment toward life in general, or resentment towards something that's been going on for a long time, and you just can't seem to get it resolved. And so their resentment builds up, and there's where the ulcers. And then, of course, we take all kinds of antacids and et cetera, which have a gazillion side effects. And then we take another product to counteract the side effects of the antacids that we took. And that's the way.
Go ahead. Well, I'm just saying. Go ahead.
And that's what the medical profession is based on, is everything has to have a pill for it, or some kind of potion, or body parts cut out.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. It seems that the medical industry and Big Pharma, it's a symbiotic relationship here, and they have to match a disease, a condition, with the medicine. Isn't that what keeps them alive?
That's right. Well, it's a cash cow. It's the industry, the medical profession, and the pharmaceutical profession are in lockstep. Excuse me. So in terms of ulcers, we would look for the fear. We would look for why they don't feel good about themselves, and resolve that issue and find out what's eating away at them. And that may take several sessions. It may not take, it'll probably take more than one. It's usually anywhere from 3 to 10 sessions, and sometimes more, to get to the root cause and then process it and resolve it.
Now, the biggest part of this interview is, I think it's something that I've recently discovered, the connection between emotions and disease. And I mention this because one of my employees, for example, a few years ago, had a son, about 29 or 30, who developed cancer. He passed away. But then he was telling me that from 6 siblings, he was the only one who would pretend as a child to be sick all the time. And then later in life, oh, I'm having a heart attack. And then later in life, I am developing cancer, jokingly. Mm-hmm. Can the subconscious mind open the door to develop cancer or any disease, which is, I think, is what happened to him?
Well, the answer to that is unequivocally yes, because our thoughts, feelings, and words create our reality. So, for example, we focus on disease. Everything is a disease. We focus on, every year there's breast cancer March month, and we focus on breast cancer, and breast cancer, and we create what we focus on, versus focusing on breast health. How do I keep my breasts healthy? Well, you keep your breasts healthy by having emotional peace of mind and good nutrition and spiritual wellness, spiritual connectedness. So when you focus on breast health, there is no way that cancer will come into your life. The other thing that in the nutritional department with regard to cancer, cancer cannot survive in a system that is alkaline. So if you keep your nutrition in the alkaline, high alkaline zone, cancer can't thrive.
Cancer, or I believe any disease for what that matter.
Well, probably many other diseases too. But now, we talk about diseases being anything from abdominal pain to zits and everything in between. Because when it's labeled a disease, then it means that they can put a pill behind it or cut out a body part legitimately, legally, and with no repercussions.
I'm so glad you mentioned the alkalinity, because about a year ago, I decided to finally interview Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, and she recommended you need to buy a ionizer, and I did over a year ago. And ever since that happened, nobody in my household, even my 6-year-old daughter, who used to be maybe sick twice a year, get the flu, a cold, nothing. And I'm a true believer now that drinking alkaline water, trying to avoid sugars as much as you possibly can, because sugar is one of the reasons why your immune system fails, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Right. If your body is overtaxed with something that is not good for it, it works harder, but it also can't work hard enough. It just can't. I mean, your body only can do so much, just like your car. Your car can only do so much, and it won't go beyond that point. If you ask it to go beyond that point, it says, see if you can make me. So your body is somewhat similar. It can only do so much as far as keeping yourself healthy. You need to be we treat our animals better, I think, our dogs and cats, and we treat our cars better than we do our own bodies.
And that's the thing. Many people, as you say, they have a symptom of something, they want a quick fix. When in reality, you need to take care of your body before you can take care of anything else. But quantity of life, many doctors say Western medicine has conquered, we have extended the lifespan. But in my opinion, I see quantity of life, but I don't see the quality of life.
Exactly. That's what's going on. We are living longer, but what is the quality of that last 20 years? And even now, I think people are getting sicker sooner. Younger ages. People are getting cancer at younger ages. People are getting high blood pressure, heart disease, strokes, and things that you didn't see in my generation. We didn't see people in high school having lung cancer or having high blood pressure. Now you do. Obesity was unheard of when I was growing up. Really unheard of. And if there was somebody who was obese, oh my goodness, it was like the whole talk of the town. I lived in a small town. So everybody knew who was obese. And now it's just commonplace that people are obese. In fact,
now it's the opposite.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is starting to swing the other direction. There for a while, I noticed that in TV commercials and even in movies, people were quite portly, and that's an old term, but still, you get the picture. And now I'm noticing that it's swinging the other way, that they're using commercials and movies to model people who are slimmer rather than heavier.
Well, it's such an extreme, because you see a lot of the models not too long ago, they look almost as if they were dying. They came from a concentration camp, and a lot of girls wanted to emulate that, and they recur to practices that are unorthodox, and some of them even died trying to emulate those people who don't seem natural.
Right. Well, we can look at the other extreme, too. We can look at the extreme of people who are anorexic or bulimic. And people who are anorexic and have bulimia, they have an emotional trauma, either physical abuse, sexual abuse, or both. And that goes beyond and certainly is not connected to just deciding one day you wake up and say, I think I'm going to be anorexic or bulimic. It's not a form of neglect. It's their way of managing extreme pain.
Is it pain, or is it also that they want to fit in?
I haven't worked with anybody that was anorexic or bulimic that, quote, wanted to fit in. It was extreme pain from emotional issues in childhood. They may be in high school, or they may be in college, they may be adults and still anorexic or bulimic, but it's not to fit in. That does not seem to be the core issue.
Well, let me rephrase that. What I mean by that is, let's say a young girl in high school who looks great, who's in shape, all of a sudden gets other girls saying, oh, you look fat. She internalizes it, and no matter how many times she looks at herself in the mirror, she thinks she's too obese. And that's why the bulimic, the anorexia kicks in, because she can never see herself the way others want to see.
Uh-huh. Well, you have a point there in the sense that I think it just exacerbates what's already there. The issue, the emotional wound is already there, and then when someone says you're fat, or you're too heavy, or you're not muscular enough, that is just an exacerbation of what's already there. That's the a core emotional wound, which then, of course, makes it even more difficult for the person to recognize that it's from an emotional wound rather than not fitting in. I did it because I wanted to fit in, when in fact they were already headed in that direction if they weren't already bulimic or anorexic.
Exactly. And I'm also hearing from dentists, and I'm so surprised to hear these statistics. Dentists who say that they're seeing people in their 20s going for dentures because their teeth are falling. What's causing this?
Well, again, it's poor nutrition. It's drinking all those soft drinks, and you know Coke, for example, is probably the worst one you can drink, and Pepsi. It actually eats away at the enamel on your teeth. So when you drink a lot of Coke or Pepsi, you're on a slippery slope to losing the enamel on your teeth. So that's interesting that we still drink it like it was, the best thing since the invention of soft drinks.
I hear from people who hardly drink water and they drink soda, and they realize they were gaining weight, and they now say, well, I'll go for the diet version, which is even worse, isn't it?
Absolutely. They think that by doing the diet version that they're doing themselves a favor, and it's actually the opposite, because all the artificial sweeteners that they use, like corn syrup and so on and so forth, and corn syrup is not artificial, it's genetically modified organism, which is not healthy. But even the artificial sweeteners have their drawbacks, not necessarily in the product itself, but in the process, adds toxic particles to the system. And so you're not doing yourself a favor by eating, quote, sugar-free. It's just substituting one bad thing with a different bad thing. So what's the answer to that? What's the answer to having a sweetener? Things like coconut sweetener, and there's stevia can be used for sweetener. Agave is on the sort of like on the threshold of being a problem too. Honey can be problematic. It depends on the people's blood type and you know their system in general. So you need to, you know, kind of do a test to see how you react to it before you say, oh, well, honey's the best, or agave's the best, or stevia's the best. Test it out and see how you react to it.
Since when did going to the grocery store become going to a battlefield? Honestly, I think that whenever I go to the grocery store, it feels like you're stepping on landmines all the time, and you have to take your time. What used to take maybe 15 minutes at the grocery store for me, now it takes an hour because I'm an avid reader when it comes to reading all the ingredients. But now they're adding natural flavors. So if they can't spell it out, do we even buy it?
Correct. Well, here's one rule of thumb. Go to the grocery store and buy the stuff that's on the outer edges of the store and not down the aisles, because down the aisles is all processed food.
Interesting.
And so the less you buy processed foods, the better you are. So eating raw fruits, raw vegetables is more healthy for you than having processed foods, or even buying the fresh foods and bringing it home and cooking it yourself. If you eat more raw than you do cooked, you're doing your body a favor. And you can do it in a lot of different ways. You can make salads. You can make different dishes with different vegetables in it or different fruits in it, and make it very appetizing and make it look nice. I mean, it looks very appetizing to see all these colors mixed in together.
How about boiling vegetables? Does that leach the vegetables from the nutrients?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It leaches right into the water, and then you pour the water off, and there you go. Steaming vegetables is much better. The water, the nutrients get sealed in versus getting sucked out. So steaming your vegetables is much better than boiling them directly in the water. And instead of boiling them until they're mushy, boil them just until they're still a little crunch in them. Like broccoli and green beans, you can just boil them till they're, steam them until they're a little crunchy yet. And they retain. And actually frozen vegetables have been cooked just a little bit, and so then when you heat them up just to unthaw them, you're still getting a lot of the nutrients that have been frozen. Rather than cooking the frozen vegetables, you just heat them up. And again, do that by steaming rather than boiling.
I know some people who are listening are thinking, I'm short of time. Can I microwave the vegetables?
Well, there's a lot of controversy about microwaves just being in the air and after you've run the microwave oven. And the molecules, how it works is you can think of it as jumping up and down, and that friction is what makes it hot. But the microwaves that cause the cells to jump up and down, or the molecules to jump up and down, can cause damage to the human cells that are walking around the kitchen. So it's, again, I think it's how much do you microwave? Do you do detox so that you can rebalance your system? And it's sort of like, it's up to you. I can get real fanatic and I can say everything, and people say, oh, well, I can't do anything because everything is bad. Well, in moderation. So think of it in terms of moderation, not microwaving everything, maybe only microwaving once in a while or not at all. I've gone both ways. I have microwaved in the past and I'm not now. So,
how about microwaving water? People who drink tea that want to do it quickly.
Well, interestingly enough, it takes just as much time to use a electric pot, to heat your water as it does to put it in the microwave. So have an electric pot.
Interesting. Didn't know that. And how about this preponderance of allergies, ADD, ADHD, autism? I remember when I was growing up, you heard some of those cases and you knew who they were. But right now, there's so much of it. What is creating all this?
Well, there's maybe not one thing that's causing ADD, attention deficit disorder. Now, remember, we have to everything has to be a disorder or a disease for the medical profession. Now, if we can label someone with a disorder or a disease, we can put pills after it, and so then we're legal, and it doesn't make any difference how many pills we use. It's legal. So therefore, if we have 10 pills for somebody that has ADD, they become sort of zombie-like, and it's legal. So no one really gets excited about it. Attention deficit disorder, I believe that sometimes it's simply because there's an emotional piece, an emotional component, and or the child is not being allowed to express themselves in the way that they wanted to express themselves. I think in today's world, we are labeling children ADD simply because teachers don't want to take the time and effort, or the parent doesn't want to take the time and effort to help the child manage issues or learn how to manage issues, because it does take time and patience. And when you help them learn to manage issues, and they are being heard. That's the other thing that we do in our society more and more, and that is we don't listen to our children. We talk at them rather than talking with them. And when children are not heard, they become hyper, they become, antagonistic. They act out because they're not being heard, and because they don't have any other tool to use to get their message across, they act out, because guess what? When you act out, you get the fastest attention from anybody. Unfortunately, it's negative attention, but negative attention is better than no attention at all.
I'm just nodding my head here because I totally agree with what you're saying. And right now, let's say you have to take it to the next level. Parents who think, oh, my son has ADHD or ADD, they take him to the psychiatrist, for example. There's hardly, even for adults, there's hardly any talk therapy lately. It's all like, how are you doing? It's fine. Okay. How's your medicine working? Well, let me give you some more. Talk therapy seems to be a thing of the past. Again, as I said, we match a disorder or a disease with a medicine.
Correct. And you go to even go to any psychologist or social worker, that's the first thing they talk about is medication. I think you need medication. I think medication will help you. Well, some people just need medication. There's no other way to look at it. So here's what most people do. They go through the pill mill, as I call it, and they've gone to several different modalities from A to Z. And then they finally come to me, in the sense that they find me on the website because they've tried everything else and it hasn't worked. Talk therapy does not get to the root issue. It simply talks on the surface because you're using the conscious mind. It's the subconscious mind that holds the emotional pain, all the details, and all the answers to all your questions. So I can access a person's subconscious mind. Let's say you have, I was working with a client yesterday, and she said she had an anxiety episode, and so I said, well, okay, let's just check out and see what the anxiety's about. So, put her in a trance, access the subconscious mind, and the word forgiveness comes up. Okay. So I said, okay, what's the forgiveness about? Well, I need to forgive this person, and this person. Then they were all her perpetrators when she was growing up as a child. So we started processing that, and as we processed it, you could just hear her coming out of the trauma. Hear that her voice was changing. as she was talking about letting go of the resentment and the anger and the hurt that she had been inexplicably hurt by people in her family. And it wasn't just one person, there were several. So when you use talk therapy as your source, you're just skimming the surface. Yes, you'll feel better because you're being heard. Everybody wants to be heard. So that part of the talk therapy is therapeutic, but it doesn't get to the root issue. And that root issue needs to be processed. And that's what I was doing with this woman yesterday. And she's very typical of nearly everybody I work with, that forgiveness needs to be addressed at some point. You need to address, okay, who are you still holding resentment with? Who are you still sad that you can't have a different kind of relationship with them? And you need to let go of that. So it's the subconscious mind that holds the key to the healing process of all emotional, physical, and spiritual distress or dis-ease. Not disease, dis-ease. It's like DIS-EASE.
Like discomfort as well.
Yes, exactly. Discomfort. And people are amazed at how much relief they get in just one session, because they've been through this for years and years and years and years. The pills, the talk therapy, the behavior modification, and all those other labels that we put on modalities, and they felt better. That is true. There's no question about that. It was like a good Band-Aid. And then when they get into the emotional trauma and process it, it's like a huge weight has been lifted off of them, a huge weight. And then their face actually looks different. I've often wished that I could take before pictures and after pictures, because the before and after picture would be dramatically different. Just their face.
Is it that they become less frowning, less stern? Correct.
Their face softens and their eyes look more bright, and they have the corners of their mouth, instead of being tight, their lips are, might be considered smooth, or it might be considered relaxed is the best way, and their eyes aren't as tight. So when you see people, you see them with these real deep wrinkles around their eyes. That's where they're holding a lot of their stress.
Why do you think Western medicine doesn't touch this subject and attaches emotion to the disease?
Well, that's not what they base their protocol on. They base their protocol on potions that it started out way back in the I don't know if you want to call it the colonial days, where they started out using potions that were actually helpful. And because there was little money in it, think about it, when somebody's well, are you going to make money off of them? Of course not.
No.
So what they started doing is tinkering around with their potions and making it less effective, but they still sold it. And then they just kept going from there. And then, of course, the body part thing, they decided that removing body parts was the other way to make things better, faster. It was just, okay, that body part's no good, just yank it out. And now, unfortunately, a lot of the body parts that are taken out are causing other diseases. For example, taking out tonsils. There's research that connects tonsils and Parkinson's disease. The studies show that there is no person with Parkinson's disease that has tonsils.
Really?
That is correct. The research shows that every single person with Parkinson's disease does not have tonsils. They have not found anyone with Parkinson's disease that has tonsils.
That's an interesting correlation.
Yes, and in the 50s, the medical profession started this campaign to yank out every single pair of tonsils. And they tried to shame parents into, well, your kid needs their tonsils out. Because if the kid got a sore throat twice in 1 year, well, I'm exaggerating probably. I don't know how many colds the kid had to have in 1 year in order for the doctor to say, okay, you need to have your tonsils taken out. And they would shame the parent if the parent said, no, I don't want my kid's tonsils taken out. They would literally shame the parent into believing that if they didn't have the child's tonsils out, that something catastrophic would take place. So the majority of people that were growing up in the 50s and even 60s had their tonsils taken out. And then kind of in the end of the 60s, they tapered off and went on to something else because now they could do ADD and ADHD and other things. And then along came now Asperger's and other things that they can throw pills at. So they didn't really don't focus so much on the tonsils anymore. Isn't that interesting?
That is absolutely interesting, and I've always had this suspicion that every single part that we were born with has a reason. And
absolutely.
The appendix. You may have seen the article recently that scientists discovered the real reason for the appendix being there, and it's a reservoir of good bacteria, so that when we're sick, it stores all that as emergency. Have you heard that?
Absolutely. It absolutely is. It also is the flow of life. Your appendix needs to screen out, if you will, certain things, and the appendix holds it and then lets it seep back out into the bloodstream in little doses so that it doesn't overwhelm the system. The same thing with your lymph nodes. We have like over 100 lymph nodes throughout your body. And places you probably, familiar with, your tonsils, by the way, is a lymph node. Your tonsils are lymph nodes, and those little, you have lymph nodes near your ears and underneath your arms. Those are the ones in your groin. Those are the ones that we know the most about, just simply because those are the ones that kind of let themselves be known for whatever reason, because you get a sore throat and your tonsils swell up. Lymph nodes are specifically designed, they're like a sponge. And you know that a sponge will soak up water. And then that sponge will sop up whatever got spilled. Well, the lymph node sops up things that are particles that are detrimental to the body, and it holds it, whether it's a bacteria or it's a virus, whatever it is, it holds it and then lets it seep out, or holds it until it's no longer active, and then it lets it go back into the bloodstream and get flushed out through the kidneys. Okay? So now the famous thing to do is take out the tonsils. Now the body gets other things. And then, okay, now you've got sore lymph nodes somewhere else. Oh, well, we'll just cut those out. They've been sore for a week. Oh, we better cut those out. I'm exaggerating. I understand that. But when you cut them out, then there's more repercussions. So now you have to take pills to compensate for not having those lymph nodes. Whereas you can do a lymph node flush, and there's two things you can do. You can do jumping jacks. There's these little trampolines that you can get, little trampolines that fit right under your bed. And you can do jumping jacks on a trampoline just for fun. And bring your arms up. Jumping jacks, of course, you bring your arms up, spread your legs, and you're going up and down and up and down. That helps to stimulate the lymph nodes so that they stay active, so that they can flush out easier. You also can use grapeseed extract I do it 4 times a year, every quarter, using grapeseed extract, which flushes out the lymph nodes.
You mean to consume it or to massage?
You consume the grapeseed extract in a little capsule. You can buy it at any health food store, such as Sprouts, High Health, GNC. You can get a bottle of grapeseed extract.
So that's simple. You can actually do jumping jacks, and you're in essence basically relieving and detoxifying your lymph nodes.
One of the things is getting your arms over your head, because you've got the lymph nodes under your arms, and jumping up and down the lymph nodes, and you're exercising them, so to speak. And so that's something that you can do anytime, just about anywhere. You don't need to have those little platforms, like a trampoline. You don't need to have those necessarily, but if you want, that's kind of fun to be on one of those little trampolines that fits under your bed. You can buy it at any sporting goods store.
It's interesting because when you do that, there's always this feeling of wellness. Sometimes you get dizzy of jumping too much, but you get this feeling of wellness when you do that. I don't know if it's because the blood is flowing up and down, or how about an inversion table?
Yes, inversion tables are good too. I have an inversion table, and there's a lot of benefits. You get the blood to come down into your brain, because we're walking around upright all day long, and so it takes the heart. It has to pump the blood up into your head. So when you're upside down, the blood is actually flowing by itself, so to speak. Of course, your heart's still pumping. And your face actually plumps up and looks very, very, your face kind of plumps up and sparks up, and your cheeks are rosy, and everybody loves rosy cheeks. Of course, we can put rouge on. Us women can put rouge on, but...
Not most men.
Well, I guess you could if you wanted to.
Right.
So you get benefits that way. You also are stretching out your spine so that you don't get compression between the vertebrae. And it relieves the vertebrae of pressure. And sometimes you notice I don't know if you've ever noticed, when you sit just a certain way, you might feel like you've got a nerve pinched.
Yes.
And, of course, if you go to the doctor, they're going to say, oh, my gosh, you need to have surgery right away. Tomorrow is not soon enough. But if you go on an inversion table at least once a week or every 2 weeks, those pinched nerves get released and you don't need surgery.
That's exactly what I did. A few years ago, I made a sudden movement and my back hurt a lot. And I went to the doctor, sent me to a chiropractor. Chiropractor said, oh, you have sciatica. Mm-hmm. So you may need surgery, or you may need to be coming here every week for I don't know how long. Mm-hmm. Well, I did my own research, bought myself an inversion table, and I learned some exercises. And by the way, I sleep with one of those very long pillows between my legs. And probably in about a week or two, it was gone, and it never came back, the pain.
Correct. And how much did you spend on that whole regime?
I don't remember, but it was a few hundred, couple of $100. That's it. Yep.
And not only that, you have it for the rest of your life, in the sense that you can use your pillow probably forever. And as far as the inversion table is concerned, you can use that forever and pass it on to someone else, and for a couple $100. Mm-hmm.
That's exactly right. Yes. So obviously they're going to say no. And we have a disclaimer at the beginning of this show, of course, that I'm not trying to say that this is cure, because you know how the FDA will clamp down on us.
Right.
But it's so essential to let people know that they have other options, and it does not have to be surgery, and it does not have to be medication. There are multiple ways to address all of this. And as you say, it's sad to hear that people have to go through the traditional Western medicine channels before they finally give up and they find you. Shouldn't it be the other way?
Well, here's what sort of is I don't know if it's amusing or if it's astonishing. What astonishes me is that Western medicine is barely 300 years old, and humans have lived on the face of this earth for thousands of years, and Western medicine just came along 300 years ago. How come we're not all dead before 300 years ago? If Western medicine is the only way that we can be the human, person can exist, why didn't we die off a long time ago?
I've asked that question, and you know what the answer I get all the time is? Well, Dr. Dorothy, or well, Mel, in the past, people would live 35, 40 years. Now they're living to be 75, 85, 90. That's what they tell you.
Oh, well, that's a misperception, because when you think about the conditions under which our ancestors, they lived in trees, for heaven's sake. They lived out in the elements. They had to protect themselves from animals. They were constantly on the alert for predators, etc. And then they lived in caves, and then from caves we went to huts and also, adobe homes and igloos and whatever else. So we were living in harsher conditions. We didn't have air conditioning. We lived in harsher conditions, so therefore the body did wear out sooner, not from disease, just from wear and tear. I mean, if you drive your car hard and you drive 100 miles an hour, well, not 100 miles an hour, but if you go over a lot of rough roads and you drive more miles every day than maybe some other people would, you're putting a lot of stress on that car. So your car is not going to last as long as someone who drives just down the street, here or there, not over any rough roads, that sort of thing. Yes, you can change parts in your car, but after a while, because of wear and tear on the structure of the vehicle, you can't replace all the parts often enough or fast enough, and you do need to buy a new car. Oh, look, you can drop a new engine in and that sort of thing. So the argument is foolhardy, because they're comparing apples to oranges. They're not comparing, the exact same conditions that people lived 100 years, 500 years, 5,000 years ago. Not to mention that we also got eaten by an animal once in a while too.
Now, isn't that interesting that, Western medicine is about 300 years, but then we look at Chinese medicine, Eastern medicine. It's been around for thousands of years.
Yes,
12, and they say
15.
that 12 to 15,000, right? Mm-hmm. So for every disease, there's a plant that goes with it. Absolutely. How come we don't see that here?
Well, the Native Americans did. The Native Americans still do. Some of them still rely on the Native American remedies. I grew up in South Dakota near the Native Americans, and my dad is part Native American, and his mother, when she raised her children, she used the Native American methods. So, my dad passed it down to us. My mom was from Germany, and so the Germans had their remedies, and she was first generation in this country. And so going to the doctor was just sort of like, go to the doctor for what? You fix it at home. And so that's the way I was raised. I wasn't raised on going to the doctor for every little hangnail or whatever. We had our own remedies, and I look younger than most people my age.
That's right. And right now, if you say that here, if I tell people, oh, I haven't been to the doctor in years, they'll look at you as if you're mentally sick.
Exactly.
You mean to tell me that you haven't gone for your physical, or you haven't gone for this and that? I feel great. And honestly, it gives me the proverbial heebie-jeebies to go to the doctor and know that they may prescribe something that I might not need.
Exactly, or that they give you a diagnosis that you can't prove otherwise, but they can quote, because we just took an MRI and you've got this or that or something else. And if you have good insurance, they're going to find something. I don't know if you heard the 60-minute piece that they did during last season on this company that owns 75 hospitals in the United States, and I forgot the name of the holding company. Anyway, they required a 20% hospitalization rate for people coming through the emergency room, and the majority of that 20%.
As an objective?
Well, that was their objective. In fact, there were whistleblowers that said, there's been several whistleblowers, that's how it got on to 60 Minutes, was that you would get fired if you did not keep that quota. Whoever was managing the emergency room staff got canned if you did not keep your 20% quota up. In other words, so if one month you did 21%, the next month maybe you could get away with 19%. But it was supposed to be a 20%, and of course the corporation denies that's what was going on, but they had 3 people that had blown the whistle. And so why would 3 people do that? Of course, they were passed off as disgruntled employees.
Of course. And here's the issue. If we had to boil everything down of what's happening to the medical industry, is that they're putting wealth before health. Let's say you have a group of hospitals publicly traded. You think that the board of directors is going to be really looking to putting health before wealth? No. Their priority is to make wealth for the shareholders, period.
That is absolutely correct. Not to mention, interestingly enough, medical doctors all have a stake in pharmaceutical companies. And it is a conflict of interest, but they have a way of getting around that they can hold shares without it being, quote, illegal, because what they do is they buy shares in a company that has all medical devices or pharmaceutical drugs as their basis. So it's easy for doctors to be plugged into making money from the drugs that they prescribe, or the apparatuses, the knee replacements, the hip replacements, whatever else, heart valves, and so on and so forth. Just as another statistic with regard to Western medicine, we rank 37th in the world as far as healthcare efficiency and effectiveness. In China, 1 in 10,000 women die of cancer. 1 in 10,000. 1 in 10 women die of cancer in the United States.
Why hasn't anybody found the correlation? As simple, take for example, autism. Somebody went to Lancaster, Pennsylvania not too long ago because they found out that the children in those communities do not develop autism. And what they found was astonishing, that in this huge community, they only had about 3 children with autism. They found that 1 was an adopted child from China who was probably vaccinated before, and 2 of the children had the parents who worked at mines, Mercury mines. The rest were autism-free. Now, with what you just said, 1 in 10,000. Why hasn't anybody taken this study and found the culprit?
Well, yes, they had the research that was done. They did address that issue, and the culprit is our number one, our emotional state in this country, and secondly, our food state, in that we have genetically modified food, we have high cholesterol food, we have food that's high based in high carbs, and we have a lot of soft drinks that cause disease or distress, and cancer is something that we tout. I mean, think about it. There's at least one commercial an hour about breast cancer. And then we have Breast Cancer Month coming up, Breast March Cancer Month, pink ribbons focusing on cancer. And everything we focus on is what we create. So if you focus on cancer, you're going to create cancer, because people go into that mode of, oh my gosh, I might get cancer. And by the way, this cancer thing that Angelina Jolie decided to do is remove both of her breasts because she has that, quote, gene that causes cancer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, the majority of women who do have cancer are physical or sexual abuse survivors. And the reason that they get cancer is because that area of the body holds the truth of the matter about their sexual abuse, because breasts are an erogenous zone or an erogenous area, and it's highly connected to sexuality. And so when someone has been traumatized sexually, they are holding that trauma in the breast area. Or it's another phenomena of women who are the caregivers, and they give and they give and they give and they give until if you will, they are sucked dry.
That's interesting. I've also heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of breast cancers appear close to the armpit, and the correlation was deodorants. Have you found that correlation too?
Well, I personally have not done research on that, but the research that I have read makes sense. The chromium in the aluminum in deodorants are the culprit.
Exactly. That's exactly what I've heard. But we have to take our one and only intermission. When we come back, I want to discuss the emotion-disease connection. And you have a lot of stories to tell, a lot of your clients, and even there's a story that you and I were discussing the other day. Steve Jobs.
Yes, Steve Jobs.
Billionaire, somebody who could buy anything. He could not buy his health. And you think there's an emotional aspect to why he died, and I want you to discuss that when we come back. But tell people how to get in touch with your work, your research, and your services.
My website is Dr. Dorothy, DrDorothy.info, and I have a plethora of articles on my website called my blog. And then if you just Google my name, Dorothy M. Neddermeyer, there's hundreds. I have over 2,500 articles on the Internet alone. So you can find a lot of articles if you use the word cancer and my name, or any disease practically from A to Z, and use my name with it. My article will pop up.
Great, folks, don't go anywhere. I'm here with Dr. Dorothy Neddermeyer. A lot of information being discussed, and we're going to discuss so much more when we come back. This is Mel Fabregas, and you're listening to Sanitas. Don't go anywhere. Thank you for listening to the first segment of this very important Sanitas interview. To listen to the rest, go to sanitasradio.com and subscribe. You will receive your login immediately. We'll take a short intermission, listen to some music, and we'll be right back. Enjoy.